Welcome to From the Sickbed, a podcast on all things disability, queerness, and more. I'm Sun.
And I'm Lavender. And from our sick beds to yours, we welcome you to join us and get comfy as you listen in. I guess we should start by talking about ourselves. As we are.
Do you want to go first?
Yes, I can go first.
Okay.
All right. So, I'm Lavender. That is my name. But you may know me as Becca. For anyone who might be listening and knew me in any previous time in my life, I'm Becca. Now, Lavender, that's the name I go by now. Let's see. In addition to having multiple names, I have, I guess, multiple creative pursuits that I engage in. One of those is that I'm an artist. I also make music, and you can look me up, Boundless Blue, on Spotify. Shameless plug. And I made our podcast theme song. So, yes, that is me.
You're very talented.
Thank you. What else to say? So I'm queer as well as sick and disabled. And I also have multiple disabilities. So I think that's difficult because, yes, I am disabled, but disability is so broad. It's so diverse. And it looks really different depending on what disabilities you have. So I guess I can name a few. Some honorable mentions. The first is I'm autistic, and that was added into the fold in 2019. Although I've been autistic since birth. So, right. You know, there's that weird thing where it's like no one knew enough to clock me as autistic until I got to my late 20s. And then I noticed I was autistic. I was like, hey, wait a sec. And then I was finally diagnosed. So that's one thing. The other, I don't know how to call it, the heavy hitter is ME. This is probably like my most despised disability. Like if I had to rank them and I was saying which ones were my favorite or least favorite, ME is trash. ME/CFS sucks.
True. I feel the same.
Yeah, so that is myalgic encephalomyelitis, if anyone isn't aware, also known as ME/CFS. And that I've had since 2017, but similarly to the autism, it took several years for anyone to recognize that I had it. It even took a few years for me to recognize that I had it. And I wasn't diagnosed until 2021. So while I've had it for 7 years, and I kind of consider it my sick anniversary because even though after I was diagnosed with ME, I discovered I had other chronic illnesses and or disabilities that I've also likely had, if not lifelong, for a very long time. I forgot my train of thought completely.
Your sick anniversary.
My sick anniversary, yeah. So my sick anniversary is like 7 years ago. Even though, yes, I've really been disabled my whole life, even though I haven't really known it. That is when I had a very profound change in my health, in my abilities, and my life. So yeah, that's some of the highlights. And then since that time, since 2021, I've also collected more diagnoses, much to my dismay. But I also have POTS and endometriosis, arthritis, and HEDS, which is the most recent. So yeah, those are my disabilities. And in terms of like, I guess the more practical aspect of my disability, I have been a wheelchair user since January of 2022. I was what you might call a part-time wheelchair user. I only used it outside of the house, and I didn't use it inside of the house for like the first 6 months, or more or less. After that, I moved to an accessible apartment, and really in those 6 months I needed to be using the wheelchair more, but wasn't able to because my apartment was not accessible.
Yeah.
So since then, I would say my wheelchair is my primary mode of mobility. I'm not a 100% full-time wheelchair user, but I do rely on it to get around, and walking is only like reserved for the most minimal occasions. Walking is a very inferior mode of mobility for me. It's not effective. I'm very slow. I'm very prone to falling. It's painful.
Yeah.
I really don't recommend it if I can help it. And neither does my PT. Well, he does encourage me to walk what I can, but only if I'm not hurting myself. So that's my situation. And yeah, that's a little about me. I really like to bake. I like being creative. I like making things. I really like music. What else could you say about me, son?
I mean, I would say, like, you're an actual artist. I don't know why I said actual. Like, you know what I mean? Like, not only did you go to art school, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you've done, like, what was it called? Like a fellowship or something?
Residencies.
Residency.
Mm-hmm. I knew what you meant, though.
Yeah, you do fiber arts.
Yeah. I am a fiber artist primarily. So I work with fabric and textiles. I do a lot of like quilted works, fabric dyeing. It is hard to describe a visual medium over audio purely.
Yeah.
So, but my work is very colorful. Some people who may have followed me for a while, they might be familiar. But if you're not, just know that it's colorful, involves fabric, and yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's fun to look at, I would hope.
Yes. I really enjoy it. One day, I'm going to save up my money so I can commission a piece or something.
You don't have to buy artwork from me, son. I will just send you something.
I don't know. I wouldn't feel right about it.
No,
I want to pay you something.
I will force you to take it. If you get money, if you become a wealthy person,
If I win the lottery,
you better be buying my artwork. But until then, you get
in that situation, if I didn't, I would be an asshole.
For real. Yeah. But until that point, you know, we can just swap.
We can talk about it.
Yeah, we can talk about it.
We'll talk about it. We'll negotiate. I'll be like haggling, but like to give you money instead of get a discount.
You're like, how can I give you more? Will you take this? Yeah, so that's me. And now we have to talk about you.
Okay. So, as I've told you, I've been like trying to think of how I would introduce myself, and other than like listing some of my disabilities and that kind of stuff. Like, I don't really know. So, like I told you earlier, I'm just gonna wing it. Well, actually, now I can kind of base it off of what you've said as like a prompt. Even though I can't remember everything you said.
It's okay.
Yeah, so I'm Sud. I am also queer and sick and disabled. I already forgot what you've said. I guess I'll start with like my quote unquote main disabilities.
Sure.
I'm also autistic and I have ADHD. And my ADHD was actually the first diagnosis, I guess, that I received. Well, besides like for my mental health, like depression and stuff like that. But yeah, I was a therapist of mine, my last therapist, who helped me realize that I had ADHD, and then that led us to realizing that I'm also autistic. And then shortly after that, I got a COVID infection that led to me being chronically ill. So I use long COVID a lot as like the umbrella term, but in that I've developed ME/CFS, arthritis, POTS. I'm trying to think of the other ones. There's a few. I don't know. One of the recent ones is anemia, but I might have had that before. I don't know. It's really hard to tell, like, what you had before you actually started, like, seeing doctors and stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And, oh yeah, I also have scoliosis, which I didn't know until I got sick and I started going to doctors. And I got an x-ray.
Oh, I don't know if I knew that yet.
I didn't tell you that I have scoliosis?
I mean,
I'm pretty sure
I think I knew about the scoliosis, but I didn't know that it was newly discovered in your like diagnostic journey.
Oh. Yeah. It was actually, I don't think it was an x-ray. I think it was an MRI. And the doctor didn't even tell me. I was like reading the results and it was like, this is something about like levoconvex scoliosis, which just like my spine kind of curves to the left. And I was like, wait, what? And it made so much sense because I've always had back issues.
Yeah.
But yeah, so those are the main ones off the top of my head. And yeah, I use a power wheelchair, which is my main, what did you call it? That's just how I move around.
Yeah.
My main form of mobility.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, yeah, I can only walk a few steps, which I pretty much only save for when I need to get to the bathroom. And if I could use my wheelchair in the bathroom, I would, but it is not accessible. So I kind of have to make myself walk those few steps. And yeah, now I'm losing my train of thought. Like, what else should I say?
What do you like?
Yeah, other than that, well, I mean, okay, so this is where I have trouble because I can't, like, you have, like, your art and, like, your baking and stuff that you do. Those are, like, your interests and stuff like that. And, like, I also have interests, but I can't really do them. Or, like, very rarely.
And why can't you do them? This is another important part of your story, or, like, about you.
Yeah. I mean, well, because I'm mostly bedbound, and my ME is pretty, I think I'm technically in the severe category. I'm not, like, at the complete end of, like, the spectrum of, like, super severe or extremely severe, but yeah, like, I'm pretty much always in bed, horizontal, can only sit up for, like, short amount of time. Also, because of my arthritis, like, my hands are really limited as well, so that doesn't leave a lot of options for me in terms of, like, hobbies or, like, creative stuff. But I do try. Before I got sick, I still wouldn't say I was an artist, but like I did enjoy painting every now and then, knitting. I did really like cooking.
Photography too.
And oh yeah, I was a photographer
Yeah,
for
you
a little
were a
bit.
photographer.
But that was like, I did yearbook pictures for schools. Like I wasn't like, you know,
Still,
out here taking beautiful shots.
I'm not a professional baker. I'm just a hobby baker. I still mention baking. You're a photographer. You like to take photos.
Yeah, that's true. I did really like photography, specifically film photography, which I really miss, and I still want to get back into it someday. It's just getting it developed is like, you know, it adds up, the costs. And also, like, it's not like I can go somewhere to get them developed like I used to. Like, I can't drive, can't just, like, go places. So, yeah, that's another thing. So I guess nowadays I mostly watch TV. I love binge watching shows.
Same.
Movies. I love horror movies, which we both like, and we'll probably talk about in another episode. And I try to play games when I can, like on my Switch, Animal Crossing, and stuff like that. And I do sometimes write poetry. That's like the most accessible form of writing that I can do now.
Yeah.
Because before, like, I had gone to school for journalism for a bit, and if I had any sort of creative identity, it would have been writer. But with, like, the brain fog and the fatigue and all that stuff combined, like, it's just, I can't do it the way I used to. So writing short things like poetry is how I can still connect to writing, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not the way I used to be able to.
For sure.
Sucks, but
I would say this is maybe related, and it's obviously a podcast is different from writing, but you are like generating thoughts and kind of like giving form to those thoughts in a way that's maybe not entirely dissimilar from writing. You're just saying it out loud instead of writing it down.
Yeah, exactly. Which is one of the reasons why I was excited to start this, because I've been trying to write forever, like, my thoughts on disability and my own experiences stuff, and I just couldn't. Like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, I'm sure there's other people who can relate, but it's like, there's just like a wall just stopping me from putting my thoughts into written word. So yeah, saying it out loud is easier and more accessible.
Yeah, more accessible in some ways on both ends, because I also struggle with writing. Anything I've wanted to write related to like disability or otherwise, it ends up being very short because that's the only amount I can handle. And then even on the receiving end, I can't read pieces of writing that are very long, like any longer than just an article. And sometimes I have to break up the article and read half of it, you know, one day and half another day or something, depending on what it is. And I can listen to audio much longer at the same time. So in both ends, like in generating something and in receiving something, I feel like audio just can be more accessible depending on what your disabilities are. But
yeah, it's the same for me, except for even with audio, I think because of my ADHD, and also I think just like being chronically ill and stuff, is hard to focus, you know, like the cognitive dysfunction and stuff. But also with ADHD, like, I'll try listening to something. I've tried audiobooks, and I don't know, a few minutes into it, I'm just like thinking of something completely different and like distracted.
yeah.
So But yeah, still, it is more, more accessible than reading something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about myself.
You have lots of puppers.
Yeah. I have technically 6 dogs, but 3 of them feel like mine, and then the other 3 are more like my nephews. Because they're mostly stay with my partner's brother. So, yeah, those are like my little nephews. And then the girls, my 3 girls, are my babies. And one of them is sleeping next to me right now. She's really cute.
Aw, love it. So you've been... Your sick anniversary is when? Like, from COVID?
It's April, I think like 14th or something. It's a week before my birthday. My 24th birthday. So it was in 2021.
2021.
Yeah. So it's been 3 years, I think.
3
Actually, the
years.
other day, like, I don't know how this happened, but in my brain, I still thought that I hadn't reached 3 years yet. I thought it had been like 2.5 or something. And then I actually did the math, and I was like, wait, it's been 3 years. I like completely forgot that it's been that long.
Yeah.
Which is really weird. I think I even told one of my doctors that I had been sick for like 2.5 years or something. That was wrong.
It's easy to forget, especially as you get like a few years in, even.
Super weird. But yeah.
And how long
3 years.
have you been a power chair user? Just for a timeline on that. I can't remember.
Oh, yeah. I got mine a couple months before you got your first one. I think it was October 2021. Yeah. It was, so I'd already been sick since April. Hadn't improved or recovered. I was actually getting worse. And then we moved to the house we're in now, and that made me even worse.
Yeah.
And, like, I had a horrible crash, and I had to go from using my rollator to, like, not being able to, like, really get out of bed. And then, yeah, I had to figure out a way to get my power chair, which has saved me in a lot of ways. Yeah, so it's been almost 3 years, right?
3 years
This
this
October
fall.
it'll be 3 years.
Right, 3
Yeah.
years this fall.
I'm not good at math. Yeah.
Yeah.
So our timelines are kind of similar in that way.
Yeah, as far as when we became mobility aid users.
Yeah.
It was around. I think we also encouraged each other to get the mobility aids and use the mobility aids.
Yeah, I remember that for sure. Something you said earlier made me think of when we first became friends, because it happened so close to like me getting sick as well, which I think played a big part in like our friendship developing more in a way, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because when we actually had met, I wasn't sick yet, but you were.
Yeah.
But we met through like the autistic community on TikTok. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think like the next month I got sick, and you were like the only person I knew who was chronically ill, and you helped me figure out that I had developed ME. I forget how long it was after I got sick, but yeah, I remember like us talking, and then you were like, it sounds like you probably have ME now. And
yeah, it was weird because we had a lot in common already before you got sick too. Because we were both autistic, we both come from families where we have brothers, like a lot of brothers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And both of our birthdays
Dysfunctional families.
We both were born not in the same month, but on the 22nd, like on the same day.
Yeah.
Weird things like that.
A lot of, weird coincidences. I remember, I think it was the first time we video chatted where we talked for like a few hours, which was like so not common for me. Like socially, I've always been like very awkward and like it takes me a bit to like connect to people. But yeah, like once we started talking about our lives, we had so many similarities, and yeah, it felt like I think I said like you were like the older like white version of me in a way, in many ways.
Yeah, and it really, it felt like we just knew each other already to an extent. Like we didn't, but it was very easy to just talk about things.
Yeah. And then I got sick, and that just like cemented.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
And that, I mean, I don't want to be super wooey or existential about it, but I like to think that there may have been like a little bit of, and I use this term loosely, like divine timing, in that even though I was sick, I didn't have anybody in my life that I talked to much about my illness or that really understood what I was going through. So I was largely dealing with a lot of that alone. And then you got sick, and it was, in one sense, it was horrible because it was like a slow motion train crash. It was like watching this person who I just became good friends with likely developing the same thing I had, that I was, was like destroying my life. And then it started destroying yours too, in slow motion. And that was horrible. And also, I was glad that I could kind of hold your hand through that, even though we have literally never met in person. We've never, but I would have been holding your hand if I had been there. But just, it was, I think, a great honor to kind of have been there and to gently say, like, I think this is happening to you too.
Yeah, I do also feel the same. Like, I feel like I don't know how it happened. It could just be like one big coincidence, but the timing was just so, I don't know what the word is, but like everything just kind of lined up. Where like a few months before you and I met, I realized I was autistic, started learning about autism and the community and stuff on TikTok. And then there's actually a family emergency that kind of got us connected, if you remember. You like reached out to me and like gave me your number, and we started talking about that. And then we became friends, and then I got sick. And I think if I hadn't met you already, I would have been way worse off. Like maybe we still would have met or like became good friends through TikTok, but like at that point I was so sick. I don't know if I would have had the energy to like, start a new friendship at that point.
Yeah.
So because we had already started a friendship before, it was easier, and you also understood like kind of what was going on, like you could see it. And I think if we hadn't met, I probably would have done more damage to myself, pushing myself to like go back to normal or exercise and like all those things that like I definitely should not do. I still kind of did it in some ways. Like I did keep pushing myself a bit to like try to shower every day like I was before, and like doing that kind of stuff, like cooking. But yeah, eventually it was just like, okay, I can't do it anymore. And it was easier to accept because you were there to tell me like, yeah, it's okay to like not push yourself to do those things, and like you actually shouldn't.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And I think some of that for anyone who's newly sick, especially with ME, it's not even about like consciously trying to push yourself. You're just naturally at the beginning don't know your limits, because it's such an entirely different way of living, and it's such a different mindset and way to live that you just try to do the things you would normally do, and then you realize after the fact, because that's what happens, right, with PEM, with post-exertional malaise. Like, it's the fact that you don't know while you're doing it that you're doing the damage, and you only know later.
Yeah. And it's especially tricky because, yeah, I knew I shouldn't be doing things like doing yoga like I was, and like, you know, going out for a walk. I already knew like, okay, I'm not feeling well. I got sick. Like, I should take it easy. But for people who have never been chronically ill, it's like, oh, taking a shower is like, you know, it's simple. It's like a basic task that I do all the time. It shouldn't take that much of a toll on me. And it's those kinds of things that like chip away at your baseline until you're like, oh fuck, like I can't walk. I can't get out of bed. Yeah.
And I think it is easier if you are lucky enough to have someone in your life who can see that from the outside and tell you, like, I notice, like, you're struggling when you do these things. That was kind of the role I played when you were going through that. Versus when I was going through that, it was like a years-long process where I had to slowly connect the dots for myself, and I didn't have anyone there saying, hey, I noticed when you go on walks or play tennis that you are in bed for a week. Which it might seem obvious, but like when you really don't know about this illness and don't know about these symptoms and these experiences, it's not an intuitive thing to just connect the dots for yourself.
I feel like that kind of intuition doesn't happen until years down the line. Like, you have to develop that that kind of voice in your head being like, okay, I know I shouldn't do that activity, or like, you know, like based on how I'm feeling right now, I kind of have an idea of what my limits are. But it takes a long time to get there, especially if you don't have someone from the outside looking in to notice those things for you.
And if you don't have a diagnosis and you have no medical support, and for the first 4 years I was undiagnosed. For the first 2 or 3 I didn't even know myself what was happening. So
which is like, it's so crazy to think about, because you had to go through so much by yourself and like figure things out by yourself, which I'm sure was horrible and like just really, really difficult to get through. But that made you able to be there for me, and I kind of got like the fast track learning a little bit about what to do, what not to do, like how to take care of myself, because you already went through it. And it was like good timing for me, but it sucked for you. I wish you did have someone back then.
And honestly, like, if of anything good, of any silver lining that could have come out of that shitty time, which I'm not someone who forces myself to like put a positive spin on things, but I will take that. Like, I will say, if that what came out of that is getting to help you through it, that is maybe one tiny little nugget of goodness.
Among all the shit.
Among all the shit, yes.
Yeah.
So that's how we became friends.
Mm-hmm.
Shared illness.
And fast forward.
Yes, fast forward to now.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we should talk about why we decided to start a podcast, what we think about it, what our hopes are for it. I think it was, well, we're in July now. I think we started talking about it in March or April.
Around there, I
Maybe
can't.
April.
I think it was maybe April, sometime.
Basically, okay, I can't remember if this is true or not, but Michael, my partner, has said that like he'd been telling me for a long time, at least a couple of years now, like, oh, you and Lavender should start a podcast because whenever we do hang out or talk, we always have so much to talk about, especially about our disabilities and stuff. And I don't remember him saying that to me that often, but in April around that time, I guess it stuck. And I was like, like, maybe I should. It was also about the timing. Like, we were both in the process of losing, like, big chunks of our monthly income.
Mm-hmm.
And that also meant we're going to have more time on our hands.
Yeah.
And the idea of doing something creative together that is kind of already what we have been doing,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like talking to each other about things like this. It just seemed like a good idea.
Yeah, that tracks. That's pretty accurate, I would say. Yeah, I think mainly we just are both very passionate about talking about all things disability and our experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And what we go through, and also supporting other disabled people. And yeah, we have a lot to say. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess if you're good at saying things, you make a podcast.
I don't know if I would say I'm good at saying things, but I will say that I think for a while I had been trying to do that in writing, like on Instagram. You know, I used to write or like post a lot more about the stuff going on with my disabilities and just how I felt about everything. And I even tried to start like a newsletter on Substack, but it just became harder and harder to not only write but also just be on social media.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how to put it into words. Like, it just felt like I started feeling more like I didn't want to be on social media as much, and it was harder for me to say things that I wanted to say. And yeah, that's the attraction for like a podcast that is like stood out to me. It's like, okay, maybe I can do it this way. I don't know if it's kind of like a cliche at this point, like everyone and their mom starts a podcast, but whatever, you know, what's one more podcast in the interwebs, you know?
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of podcasts by sick and disabled people anyways.
Yeah.
So
that I would agree with. There are some maybe more niche podcasts around disability that I've come across, but there really isn't a whole lot out there.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely something that we're both passionate about talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, from my own experiences, we're not going to be like reporting on like disability news or science stuff. At least I'm not, probably. you might bring stuff up.
yeah,
like,
there could be some
but
things.
yeah, but like that's not the theme.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I meant. It's more just about what we've gone through and go through, and
Yeah. Our observations, more so, like our commentary on like disabled culture, because there's a disabled culture. People probably wouldn't think of it that way or wouldn't think about it like that, but we do have our own culture as disabled people, and it is also like very wide and varied.
There's so many things that we'll probably end up talking about that, yeah, there's just a lot. Okay, so yeah, we wanted to ask each other some questions, not only for people listening to kind of get to know us more, like our personalities, but also each other. Like, I don't think we've asked each other these specific questions before. Yeah, so I think it would be fun and interesting. So my first question is, which of these do you find more egregious? Someone saying, you're too pretty to be in a wheelchair, or someone asking, what's wrong with you?
This one's hard for me. I mean, obviously they're both like not a great question to be asked.
They're both bad.
Like, the first one is such a backhanded compliment, like, oh, like, you're pretty, but you're in a wheelchair. Like, it implies the second, like, what's wrong with you? Like, even if they're not saying it outright, at least to me. Versus the second, which is just, like, very bold and rude. Bold in its rudeness, just being like, what's wrong with you? If I really had to choose which one, I would say the first, because I think someone thinking they're being nice, because they probably think they're being nice and saying that, but it's actually pretty insulting, because, you know, just assuming you can't be pretty if you're disabled. You can't be, you know.
Makes no fucking sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. But, like, that is how people think.
Yeah. Or it's like, you don't deserve to be in a wheelchair because you're pretty.
Right,
like,
but if someone's not pretty, then it's fine.
Like, it's so weird. It's such a weird thing to say to someone.
So messed up. So, yeah, all of those kind of connotations that come from it, I would probably, in a way, feel like put in a worse position if someone asked me that. No one has asked me that yet, knock on wood. But
what's wrong with you?
No, the first one. Like, I would feel more awkward responding to just someone saying out the blue, like, you're too pretty to be in a wheelchair. Because what do you say? I can't say thank you. I can't say...
Yeah.
But then they're trying to be nice, and then it's just uncomfortable.
Yeah. I actually have firsthand experience with that. Yeah. I don't know if you remember, but it was a medical appointment. It was one of the most infuriating appointments I've ever had. And I left that place, like, just crying and was so angry.
Oh, no.
But yeah, that was one of the things that someone said to me. It was someone doing what's it called?
Was it the EMG? The nerve conduction study. Yeah,
on my legs. And the tech, when I was, like, we had finished and I was getting ready to leave and stuff, and she said that to me. And yeah, it was very, like, I kind of froze because I was just like, well, one, I felt like shit because she just, like, was shocking my legs and, like, stabbing me, you know? So I was exhausted. But yeah, when someone says that, it's just like, what are you supposed to say to that? And I remember in the moment, I did know that it was fucked up that she said that, but I didn't know how to respond. So I just kind of, like, stared at her. And I stared at her for, like, a couple seconds. And I turned to Micah and I was just like, okay, let's get out of here.
Yeah.
And then I left a review on Google later and mentioned it and, like, how bad an experience it was.
As you should.
Yeah. Yeah, it is, like, what are you supposed to say to that?
Right, because what kind of response can you give in that moment? It's just very uncomfortable. Versus the second, which no one has asked me that either. Not that people haven't said very weird or even rude things to me as a wheelchair user, just not these particular rude things. But the second one, just saying like, what's wrong with you, I think I would feel more comfortable just being like, fuck off, or like, that's not, you can't just ask that. Like, I would feel more like, because they're already coming from such a rude place, that I would just be like,
what the fuck's wrong with you?
Yeah, yeah, what's wrong with you?
Why are you asking me that question?
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. I feel like this is one of the questions that I've also, like, mentally prepared myself for. Like, actually, like, before leaving the house, I'm like, someone might say this to me. And I don't know if in the moment I'll remember any of the things I, like, rehearse in my head, but hopefully. I feel like it might be easier to, like, actually answer, like you said, like what's wrong with you, or fuck off, or none of your business, or say something like, just like mess with them, be like, shark attack.
Right, yeah. I got struck by lightning.
Yeah. Or, yeah, I don't know. It's just also very rude and, like, just shitty to say that. But, like, also I know that, like, in people's minds, well, at first, I don't know why people don't think before they speak, but in their mind, they're probably, it sounds to them like, why are you in a wheelchair? Or, like, what's going on with you? But then it comes out of their mouth as, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
It's just like, that's not, if you want to, like, if you're curious, that's not the way to ask someone at all.
Yeah.
I want to think of a response for the first one.
Yeah, we should think of a response. I have had the maybe like more polite, mild version of that, where an Uber driver was like, so why do you need the wheelchair? And I could have just, said I don't feel like answering, or I'm not comfortable responding, but I gave him a very generic response. I didn't give him my whole health history, but he asked it earnestly enough and in a way that was respectful. I knew what he meant. He was just curious. And I just told him, I have chronic illnesses that make it difficult for me to walk. And he was like, oh, I get it. Like, I have a family member, someone like his aunt, I forget who he said, that like is disabled and sometimes struggles to walk or something like that. So yeah, there are better ways to ask it, but I think the other thing too is, like, people need to be ready to just not get an answer, because even if you ask it politely, not every disabled person is going to be comfortable responding to that. So
yeah, like, even if someone asks it respectfully, that doesn't mean you have to answer,
right, or
like give your personal information, because even if you're vague, like, that's still very personal thing to ask about,
right.
But yeah, I feel like we need to come up with a response for the first one. Like, you're too pretty to be in a wheelchair. I don't know. I want to think of something really mean, but I don't know.
I thought of one really mean. You want to hear it? What? You're too ugly to be walking around, but here we are.
Oh my god. Yeah, that's really petty.
That's so petty, like the pettiest.
I was thinking something similar, but more like, I don't know. I was thinking more of, like, calling out, like, their ugly personality. But I don't know the words for it. But along, like, similar lines. Yeah. Oh, people just need to not. Don't say that, ever. Keep it in your head if you think it.
Or you could just, like, embrace it. You'd be like, okay, well, I'm pretty and I'm in a wheelchair. Have you never seen, like, a gorgeous disabled person? Now you have. Okay. Bye.
You're welcome.
Hair flip.
Gracing you with my presence.
Roll away.
Okay. let's go into your question.
Okay. What were your favorite TV shows as a kid?
As a kid, what are we thinking a specific like age range or just until adulthood?
Any age
Or until
range.
teenagehood?
Yeah, until teens. Like anything that just comes to mind.
Okay. Definitely first one comes to mind is SpongeBob.
Elite.
I'm embarrassed to say it, but I do remember thoroughly enjoying Hannah Montana at one point when I was a kid. Like a kid. TV shows. It's weird, like, I feel like I have more memories of movies as a kid than TV shows. Unless someone, like, brings one up and it makes me remember it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I remember, I really like Rugrats.
Oh, yeah.
Rugrats
Same.
was a good one. I liked a lot of cartoons.
Naturally.
And also I had brothers, so we would watch a lot of cartoons and more like action ones, like Teen Titans and stuff like that. I remember Johnny Bravo and Powerpuff Girls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about Dexter's Lab? Did you ever watch that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That was a good one. Courage the Cowardly Dog.
Yes, that one traumatized me as it did, like, probably our whole generation.
I actually tried rewatching it recently, and I couldn't do it. It was just like, well, one is like really bad quality, like compared to what we watch now. But also, it's just like, I didn't feel the same. I think it's better when you're a kid.
Yeah, it's very different as a kid. I just remember it came on kind of late at night. And of course, it would sometimes be like the last thing I watched before bed. And then I'm having all types of just these wild, unsettling dreams from Courage the Cowardly Dog.
Yeah. I remember I would watch a lot of Nickelodeon, and a lot of times it would like go to like Nick at Night, which I guess was the more like adult or like mature shows. But I remember watching a lot of George Lopez because that was one of the shows that always came on at night, and there was nothing else I could watch. So
Nice.
yeah.
That's funny. What about, like, I weirdly remember a lot of shows from when I was a really little kid. And I was going to ask you if you watched any of these or if you remember them. Because I know I'm a few years older than you. So I don't know if they were still, like, around at all or playing. But one of them was, of course, Mr. Rogers. I actually watched Mr. Rogers when I was a little kid, like daycare, preschool. Did you ever watch Mr. Rogers as a kid?
Yes, but I was so little, like, I don't really remember it. But, like, I know that I did, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. But I don't remember specific episodes or, like, things like that.
Yeah. I don't remember specifics. I just remember his little, like, intro theme song. And some of the scenes, like the characters, like the little village.
Neighborhood.
Yeah, the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Rogers.
I remember more of Elmo. What's it called? Sesame Street. Than Mr. Rogers.
Sesame Street. Yeah. What about the Big Comfy Couch?
I don't think so. That name sounds familiar, but I don't think so.
Yeah. That was one of my favorite. No, it was like a fever dream. It was like a real like stage like set with this person. I guess I forget her name, the host, but she dressed like a clown. And there were other characters too, like these characters that were in a little traveler caravan. And then there was like the puppets, actual puppets that were dust bunnies that lived in the couch, the big comfy couch. And then there was this little, like, my favorite part of the show is when the clown character, she would do like motions on a giant clock, and you were supposed to follow along, and you would like move your arms and legs to make different times on the clock.
Oh, yeah, I do not remember that.
And I would like lay out on the floor and do it, and I loved it. I thought it was so fun. It was one of my favorites. And just like, it was very colorful. The set is like comical and funny because the couch is like massive. Like, even for her, just a person, like, the couch was huge.
Yeah, I have no memories of that. It sounds interesting, though.
It is.
Yeah.
That's why I said it's like a fever dream, because it feels like something I made up, but it was real.
Yeah. I don't fuck with clowns, so I don't know if I'd watch that.
There was another show I really loved that I watched when I was really little. It was called Out of the Box. Did you watch that?
That sounds familiar, too.
Out of the box. Out of the box.
Yeah. That sounds familiar, but I don't remember what it was about.
It was a show where they would do different crafts and activities. And again, it was on a set that they had made for the show. And in the theme of the show, like in the intro, they're building this space out of boxes in their backyard. And then they go inside the boxes, and it turns into like a massive, like, whole space, like a whole massive set. You know how when you're a kid and you like make a fort and it feels so much bigger on the inside than it is on the outside? It was like that. That was the whole set to the show, but that was just the set. Inside the set, they would do like little crafts and activities and tell stories.
Aww,
and you could like
that sounds cute.
Follow along with the crafts if you wanted to, like if you got the materials for it. So it was very like enriching, a very wholesome show.
I wonder if they still make shows like that.
I don't know.
Probably not. If you had to live in a horror movie or show, what would you choose? And why? I've already thought of my answer.
Okay, I have to look up the show because I can't remember. What is it called? Oh, it's Midnight Club.
I figured you might say that. Yeah.
Did you know I would say that? How did you know?
Yeah, I thought you might.
I mean, as a disabled person, that show is just so good. Like, as myself right now, getting to exist in that show and be around other disabled people, and the whole concept behind it, I think it would be interesting to exist in that world. Yeah. That or The Haunting of Bly Manor.
Really? Because it's gay?
I mean, obviously, like, it's it's gay, not only because it's gay, but also because of that. It's just very, like, reminiscent of, I think, my childhood and growing up, like, in a haunted house, isolated in the middle of nowhere. It feels like home.
That makes sense.
So, yeah.
In a creepy way.
In a creepy way, but I mean, the house I grew up in was pretty creepy. So,
was haunted.
Yeah, and was haunted. So, there's that. Yeah, what about you? What were your answers? Okay,
I'll try to keep it short and sweet. So, I picked Midnight Mass.
Ooh.
Only because, well, two reasons. I've seen a shit ton of vampire stuff, shows and movies. I feel like I might have survived. I might have been on the boat at the end. But
spoilers.
Even if I didn't survive... Oh, sorry. That's very vague.
Yeah.
A boat? But even if I didn't survive, it would have been worth it if I got to slap the shit out of that racist Catholic bitch. You know what I'm talking about. That was like one of the shows where I've seen it twice now. And both times I just have a very visceral reaction to that character because she's so horrible. And it's always like, if this person existed and was right in front of me, like, I would for sure run her over. Like, there's no question about it. And she doesn't get slapped in the movie. That was an injustice. She needed to get at least bitch slapped in that movie. Or show.
Okay. I was like, there's a movie?
No.
No. I need to rewatch it too because it was really good. And
it's so good.
I don't remember all the details, but yeah, that's a really good one.
Yeah. It's such a good, like, take on vampires and just, like, the whole lead up. Yeah, it's so good.
The setting, like,
if I didn't survive it.
The criticisms of religion, all of that. Yeah.
All of it. Okay, your turn.
Okay. If you could travel anywhere in the world, where would you go and why? Which, I know this is hard because neither of us can travel, but
yeah, is it like how I am now, or I was able-bodied?
You could take it either. Like, either you have some miraculous remission and you can go wherever you want, or somehow, like, you maybe are able to be accommodated and you could go, like, have a bucket list trip anywhere in the world.
Oh, that is hard because I can only think of places that I already know I like I've been there before. I feel like it would be a gamble to pick somewhere I've never been and I get there and, like, what if it's not as good in my head? But yeah, I think I'd pick either Switzerland. I forget the name of the town that I went to, but that was, like, one of the most beautiful places I've ever been to. That would be, like, if I want to go somewhere just, like, surrounded by, like, green and nature and stuff. Or I think either Amsterdam or somewhere in Italy. Italy to stuff my face with pizza and pasta. And Amsterdam just for, like, the atmosphere and the people and stuff.
Yeah. Those are good choices, I would say. Those were all in Europe.
Yeah. The one time I went to Europe, I went to multiple places.
Nice. I feel similarly in that I can think of places I've already been, but then there are some places I haven't been I know I would want to go to. If I were to go somewhere I've already been, I would want to go back to Japan and specifically Kyoto, which I didn't get to spend a lot of time there, so that I guess that's maybe one reason I would want to go back. I was only there for a few days and I really loved it, especially the surrounding areas in, like, the Japanese countryside. And it, again, kind of like you said, it was one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. And going to the temples there. Although I will say that would be probably something I'd only be able to do if I were somehow magically not disabled, or at least not a wheelchair user anymore, because it is one of the most inaccessible places I could probably imagine. Talking, like, thousands of steps, literally.
My nightmare.
Yeah. I really also, for places I haven't been, I really would love to go to Ireland someday and see some of the sites there. And also Iceland, the landlands. Ireland, Iceland.
Greenland?
Sure, why not? Greenland.
Nice.
I guess had an interest in both countries and the culture of both countries. And also just seeing, you know, pictures or videos or just some of the places that you can go there, some of the places that exist. I think I would really enjoy it. So,
yeah, I'm sure it'd be really beautiful.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, we're almost at the end.
Yes.
Okay. What is one quirk of yours that you genuinely like?
This is...
It could be something like simple or, whatever comes to mind.
Yeah. It's hard to think of a quirk.
Like, I could say mine if that helps.
Okay, you go first.
The only one I could think of is when I laugh really hard, I snort. And I know some people don't like that, like when they do it themselves or like they find it embarrassing or whatever. But I like it. I think it's funny. It makes me laugh even harder when that happens. So.
Okay, I think I've got one, but I didn't even know it was something I did until I met my partner, Yuto. So I'm a clumsy person, okay? I'm autistic, like the EDS. I drop things, I bump into things, and a lot of times when I do that, I say oops. And even when it's something that it was like totally not actually an accident, I say oops. And like, I guess it is an accident, but like I say it so much that sometimes even for things I do intentionally as well, I will also just say oops. So it just become like a running thing that we say and that I just say in general now. Like if I'm eating an extra piece of pizza, I'll be like oops. Or if I'm like playing a joke on you or just like being sassy, I'll like do something and be like oops. Like oops. It's like sorry, not sorry.
Sarcastic oops.
Yeah, like a sarcastic oops. And I still also just say it when anything I do, like I'll just be like oops, and it just comes out. And yeah, I guess he found it endearing, and so I think it's kind of funny.
I think it's endearing too.
So yeah. Is it my turn now?
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Oh, this is a good one. Can you recall a time you felt really embarrassed? What happened and how did you deal with it?
I don't know and I don't want to answer. Almost every day of my existence is embarrassing. A time I felt really embarrassed? I don't know. Do you have an answer? Because I might need to think.
I do have an answer. So this happened in middle school. And I was sitting behind someone that I had a long-term crush on. And I can't remember if I like actively liked this person at the time, but you know, it was like that sort of scenario. So I'm sitting behind this person in class, and I think it was history. Not that that's really relevant, but I sneezed suddenly. And when I sneezed, this is like kind of gross, so just like trigger warning for like body stuff, but
okay,
when I sneezed, blood came out like a massive, and it was like a very violent sneeze, like sudden and violent. So I didn't sneeze into my arm because I didn't even know I was about to sneeze. It was just out of nowhere, and then blood just came, it splattered out. It was just only blood. I don't know what is wrong with me. Like, well, obviously there's a lot wrong with me, but but whatever in that moment happened to just make blood come out, I have no idea.
Oh my God.
And this person was wearing a white t-shirt.
Oh.
So my nose blood splattered all over his back on his white t-shirt. And
oh, no.
I was mortified. It was one of the most embarrassing things, especially as a middle schooler. Are you kidding?
Yeah,
Are
that's
you kidding?
Brutal. That's really brutal.
And he had to. So what happened and what did I do about it? He ran out of the room to take care of it. He didn't actually know what had happened. I had to tell him. This is even worse.
You didn't feel it?
Like, he knew I sneezed, but he didn't know he got blood all over his shirt from my sneeze because it was on his back. And I had to be like, I'm so sorry, but I just sneezed blood.
That's so bad.
I can't remember how I said it, but I sneezed blood on you, and you should probably go clean up. And he had to ask to be excused and leave the room. And I think I remember at the time just trying to like sink into myself and dissociate and just pretend like it didn't happen, and everyone felt really bad for him. They felt really bad for him because he got blood on him, but I was like, no one's gonna feel bad for me. Like, that was like a terrible thing.
Yeah.
Well, obviously,
nothing to be embarrassed about.
Yeah, obviously I felt bad for having done that, but yeah, that's what happened. That's an embarrassing story.
Okay, that did make me think of something.
Okay.
Actually.
Okay.
Because of the blood.
Oh no.
It's not necessarily a bloody story, but basically I was at the beach with my family and my boyfriend at the time. This was like my high school boyfriend.
Mm-mm.
And I was on my period, so I was wearing I think a pad. Yeah, I think a pad. And that was part of the problem. I should have worn a tampon.
Oh, no.
But basically, I knew I wasn't going to go in the water, but I wanted to, like, at least get my legs wet, you know, just feel it. But out of nowhere, a wave came in, knocked me down, and tried to drown me.
Rude.
I didn't drown. But I got up, and I already knew, like, my pad was soaked, and I think I was wearing shorts, so like,
no.
It felt like I couldn't see anything, but it felt like it was gonna like come out the side of my shorts. You know what I mean?
Oh no.
So this was at the beach. I had to like just figure out really quickly like what to do. I had to find a bathroom, and so I remember, I don't know why I brought him along, but I brought my boyfriend along. I guess I didn't want my parents to come with me because that would be worse to me in my mind for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I made him come with me so we could find a bathroom for me to go and like change my pad.
Oh,
it was so embarrassing.
That does really suck. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess the lesser of two evils, like, do you ask your boyfriend or your parents to come?
Right. Yeah.
You?
And like they had to watch my brothers, so like I'd rather them stay and not have my mom and dad come with me.
Yeah.
But still, I wish he didn't have to live through that either.
Yeah.
Okay, last question.
Okay.
Which is our surprise questions.
Mm-hmm.
That we did not tell each other about.
Yes.
I have to pull mine up.
Me
or
too.
Actually, I already know.
Okay, go for it.
If you could, what kind of fantastical modification would you like for your wheelchair? For example, you know, the ability to fly, have super speed, force fields, like weapons, that kind of stuff.
Oh, that is such a good question. I'm really torn between two things. You actually said both of them, because when you said those things, I was like, oh, that would be so good. So flying, first of all, I've always just wanted to be able to fly. Like, I'm one of those people that flies in my dreams and stuff. Mm-hmm. And to have a wheelchair that could convert, I'm imagining that I can convert from just rolling, and then I like switch modes and the wheels like switch out and start like having jets that like hover,
Yeah.
and it like turns into just like
like wings pop out the sides.
Yeah, like a drone, but I'm just like flying my wheelchair, and I could because imagine you could get over so many obstacles, like cracked sidewalks, stairs, like anything, and you could just like zip and fly above it, and then you could just like convert back to wheeling. Either that or the force field. Like, I'm imagining a force field like it's invisible, but I'm in kind of like a ball, like in my wheelchair, and it like a bubble, and it pushes people out of the way, because when being in crowds as a wheelchair user is so difficult. Like, people step in front of me, I have to stop suddenly to the point where I almost hit them, because they don't pay attention and they don't see you, or they ignore you.
Yeah.
Or they think you're going slower than you are, and they just like step out in front of you. Even when I'm using a power assist and it's hard to stop on the dot, like it's hard to stop suddenly. So the force field could just plow through people.
Move, bitch.
Yeah.
Get out the way.
What about you?
Yeah. I really like those two as well. Another one, I don't think that, like, I really doubt I would need this, but there's an appeal to thinking I could just, like, press a button and, like, robot arms come out with, like knives and shit. Or just, like, you know, to protect me.
Damn,
to protect me. You never know. Someone, like, gets in my face, or, like, you know?
Yeah.
Just in case, I have my own, like, built-in bodyguard. Maybe,
True.
like, some, like, less lethal, like a taser or like nunchucks or something
just
like that.
Self-defense. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that has an appeal. Flying for sure. You know, I would be scared of landing. I think that you'd have to learn how to do that. But that would be really cool. And I would love to just like go just high enough to like be amongst the clouds and just like have all that free space to myself.
Imagine someone's flying in a plane, they just see a wheelchair user flying out the window next to
Imagine flying with birds. You could just fly alongside some birds.
You could also fly away in an emergency. So to get away from someone, you could just fly.
Yeah. Maybe my wheelchair wouldn't have to kill someone then.
There you go. Away. Right. Yeah, exactly. I also thought of going invisible, like if it had an invisible mode, because maybe the force field could make you invisible too. I just people stare a lot, so
yeah, true. That would be cool.
Just be invisible.
Yeah. Okay, last question.
Oh yeah, my question. What's one thing that you consider a guilty pleasure, or if you don't want to call it a guilty pleasure, like what is an indulgence you partake in?
An indulgence. The only thing that could come to mind is like reality TV shows that have no other value except just like make me laugh at people who are just doing things so wrong. Yeah. I think that I would say that. Love Island, I love. Vanderpump Rules. I can't remember any other ones, but I do enjoy a good trashy reality TV show.
Yeah, nice one. I would count that. I would say that counts. I don't know if I even have one. I really don't. I feel like I indulge myself very much. Maybe popcorn. Popcorn is something I love to eat.
That's an indulgence for you?
But I like to eat a lot of popcorn. Like when you go to the movie theater and you get like a whole thing of popcorn,
bucket.
like a bucket, and I would eat the whole bucket. And I still like to recreate that. Like when I'm watching a movie or something, or even just like chilling or like working on artwork and eating a snack, I will pop the whole bag. And I will eat the whole bag, and I don't even feel messed up. It's like No sweat. Just
Damn.
easy. And now it's for pots, like it's salty and it's a lot of salt, so that's probably why it started in the first place. But.
Yeah, I should probably eat more popcorn. So that made me think of a food that I indulge in that I really shouldn't.
Ooh.
And it's also related to pots, but in the opposite way. It's bad for pots.
Oh no.
I stay away from all caffeine except for this cold brew coffee ice cream that I eat.
Ooh.
It's so good. Afterwards, my heart is racing.
Oh no.
Like, I feel bad.
Yeah.
I'm sweating. But it tastes so good that's just like, sometimes it's worth it.
Yeah.
I have to.
Sometimes you have to.
Yeah.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah.
All right, that's it. That's
all of our questions.
All the questions.
That's all for episode 1.
One and done. Just kidding. We're going to do more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was fun. I had fun.
Yeah. Hopefully the people know.
People know what? Know us.
They know about us and know that the podcast exists now.
Mm-hmm. They know a little bit about who we are, embarrassing stories we have.
Yes.
Yeah.
This has been From the Sickbed. Thank you for joining us in sickness and solidarity. You can find us at From the Sickbed on Instagram, YouTube, and Substack. Support us by sending us tips on Ko-fi. Take care and talk to you next time.